Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we drift into the shadowy corridors of history, exploring medieval mysteries that have puzzled scholars, adventurers, and storytellers for centuries. From lost princes and ancient temples to warriors, secret treasures, and forgotten civilizations. We'll uncover the secrets, the scandals, and the astonishing truths that have finally come to light, or are still waiting to be discovered. So grab a seat, because this journey into the past is about to begin. Imagine living in a world without modern medicine, without microscopes, without the faintest idea of how diseases spread. You walk the cobblestone streets of a bustling medieval town, merchants shouting in the marketplace, church bells ringing in the distance, children laughing as they chase each other through narrow alleys. Life seems fragile but stable in its own medieval rhythm. Then, without warning, a shadow creeps across the land. People collapse in the streets, their bodies covered with dark swellings, horrific black buboes that ooze with infection. Within days, whole families are wiped out, entire villages abandoned, cities turned into graveyards. Priests whisper that it is God's punishment. Others claim it is the work of demons, sorcery, or even poisoned wells. This was the terrifying reality of the Black Death, one of the greatest mysteries of the medieval world. For centuries, historians and ordinary people alike asked the same questions. Where did this plague come from? Why did it spread with such ferocity? And why did it return again and again, haunting Europe for centuries after its first outbreak? Today, modern science has given us answers, but for the people of the 14th century, it was an unsolvable riddle, a divine terror that defied human understanding. The world before the plague. To understand the mystery, we must step back into the world just before the Black Death erupted. Europe in the early 1300s was a land of contrasts. Magnificent cathedrals soared into the skies, evidence of human ambition and devotion. Kingdoms rose and fell, knights rode to war in shining armor, and scholars in monasteries pored over ancient texts, trying to make sense of the cosmos. But beneath this veneer of stability lay deep vulnerability. The climate was shifting. The so-called Little Ice Age was beginning, bringing harsher winters and shorter growing seasons. Crops failed, famine spread, and malnutrition weakened countless bodies. Meanwhile, far to the east, mighty empires thrived. The Mongol Empire stretched across vast territories, linking China, Central Asia, and Eastern Europe. For the first time in history, trade routes like the Silk Road allowed goods, people, and ideas to flow with unprecedented speed. Silk, spices, precious metals, and knowledge crossed deserts and mountains, connecting distant civilizations. Yet, along with wealth and culture, something else traveled these same routes: disease. The earliest hints of the Black Death's origin were not recorded in Europe at all, but in Asia. Chinese chronicles from the early 1330s describe strange outbreaks of pestilence that devastated communities. Around the same time, mass graves dating to 1338 in what is now Kyrgyzstan showed evidence of sudden, unexplained deaths. For centuries, scholars debated, were these events connected to the catastrophe that would soon strike Europe, or were they separate tragedies, unrelated in their causes? The medieval world had no concept of bacteria or germs. Disease was explained in spiritual or astrological terms. Many believed the alignment of the planets had poisoned the air. Others accused minority communities, especially Jews, of spreading poison in wells, a false and tragic accusation that led to horrific persecution. Without science to guide them, medieval people tried to explain the unexplainable with the tools they had: faith, fear, and superstition. The Black Death first struck Europe in 1347, when Genoa's trading ships arrived in the port of Messina, Sicily. As the ships docked, The townspeople were horrified to find sailors dead or dying, their bodies covered with black swellings and strange marks. Before anyone understood what was happening, the disease leapt ashore and began to spread like wildfire. From Sicily, it moved to mainland Italy, then across France, Spain, and the rest of Europe. Within just a few years, it had reached nearly every corner of the continent. The speed of its spread was terrifying. Carried by fleas on black rats, the plague moved silently and invisibly along trade routes, infecting new victims in every town it touched. Entire communities were wiped out in weeks. Chroniclers of the time struggled to describe the horror. One Italian writer noted that father abandoned child, wife abandoned husband, one brother the other, for this illness seemed to strike through the breath and sight alone. In the city of Florence, so many people died so quickly that there were not enough living to bury the dead. Mass graves swallowed thousands at a time. The Black Death was more than just a medical disaster. It was a mystery that shook the very foundations of medieval thought. Why did some survive while others perished? Why did entire villages disappear while neighboring towns remained untouched? In desperation, people turned to religion. Flagellant movements swept through Europe. Bands of men who whipped themselves in public, hoping their suffering might atone for humanity's sins and end God's wrath. Processions, prayers, and pilgrimages became common, but none stopped the spread. Meanwhile, scapegoats were sought. In some towns, Jews were accused of poisoning wells and were massacred in brutal pogroms. The search for answers often led only to more tragedy. For centuries, the origin of the Black Death remained a mystery. Historians argued, did it come from China, India, or the Middle East? Some even believed it arose spontaneously in Europe. But in the 21st century, breakthroughs in genetics and archaeology finally provided answers. Scientists studying ancient graves in Kyrgyzstan made a shocking discovery. Tombstones dated to 1338 and 1339 marked the deaths of whole families in a short span of time. Analysis of the remains revealed traces of Yersinia pestis, the bacterium that causes plague. This proved that the Black Death's earliest outbreak occurred in Central Asia, years before it reached Europe. From there, the plague likely traveled westward along the Silk Road, carried by traders, merchants, and their goods. The Mongol Empire's vast networks, once celebrated for connecting the world, now appear to have played a dark role in spreading one of history's deadliest diseases. Globalization, in its earliest form, became the engine of one of humanity's greatest catastrophes. Between 1347 and 1351, the Black Death killed an estimated 25 to 50 million people, roughly 1/3 to 1/2 of Europe's population. The sheer scale of death transformed society in ways that can still be felt today. Labor shortages gave peasants greater bargaining power, shaking the foundations of feudalism. The Church, unable to explain or stop the plague, saw its authority questioned. Whole communities vanished, and with them, centuries of tradition and knowledge. But perhaps the greatest impact was psychological. For those who survived, the world was never the same. Life seemed fragile, unpredictable, and fleeting. Art, literature, and even architecture reflected a new obsession with death. The Danse Macabre, or Dance of Death, became a popular theme, reminding all that death spared no one, king or peasant, noble or beggar. For medieval people, the Black Death was an unsolvable mystery, a punishment from the heavens that no one could escape. But today, science has peeled back the layers of myth and superstition. We now know it was caused by a tiny bacterium carried by fleas and spread along the arteries of trade. What once seemed like divine wrath was in fact an early and devastating chapter of global interconnectedness, and yet Even with this knowledge, the Black Death continues to fascinate us. It is a reminder of how fragile human societies can be, how quickly the familiar can crumble into chaos. The plague reshaped history, not only by killing millions, but by altering the course of politics, economics, and culture. In solving the mystery of its origins, we gain not only scientific clarity, but also a deeper understanding of how the medieval world, just like ours, was shaped by forces beyond its control. So when we ask, where did the Black Death come from? The answer is no longer hidden in shadows. It came from Central Asia, traveled along the veins of trade, and unleashed a storm across Europe. What was once the greatest medieval mystery is now one of history's most studied events. And yet, in solving it, we realize something profound. History is not just a collection of events. It is a chain of causes and effects, of connections across continents, of human triumphs and tragedies that bind us together through time. The Black Death was not just a medieval catastrophe. It was the first global pandemic, and its story continues to echo into our modern age, reminding us that no mystery remains unsolved forever, only waiting for the moment when evidence and understanding finally come together. The story of the Knights Templar begins in the chaos of the Crusades. It was the year 1119. Jerusalem had just been captured by Christian forces after centuries of Islamic rule. Pilgrims from all over Europe began traveling to the Holy Land, eager to walk the path of Christ, to kneel at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, to see with their own eyes the land that was spoken of in every sermon and prayer. But the roads to Jerusalem were dangerous. Bandits, mercenaries, and hostile forces lurked along the routes, robbing and murdering pilgrims who carried little more than faith in their hearts. Out of this need for protection, a small band of knights gathered under a French nobleman named Hugues de Payens. They took solemn vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, much like monks, yet unlike monks, they carried swords. Their mission was simple yet sacred, to protect pilgrims traveling through the Holy Land. This group called themselves the Poor Fellow, soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, later shortened to the Knights Templar. Their headquarters was established on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, the very site where the ancient Jewish temple was believed to have once stood. The name Templar came from this holy location, immediately imbuing the order with mystique and symbolic power. At first, they were just a handful of men with little wealth, but as word spread of their bravery and devotion, donations poured in. Kings, nobles, and merchants gave land, money, and privileges to support the cause. Within a few decades, the Templars grew into one of the most powerful and wealthy organizations of the medieval world. The Templars were unique. They were both monks and warriors, bound by religious vows. They prayed daily, lived simply, and obeyed strict rules of conduct. Yet on the battlefield, they were fierce, disciplined, and feared by enemies. Wearing their distinctive white mantles adorned with a red cross, they became living symbols of holy war. But their influence extended far beyond the battlefield. As their wealth grew, the Templars developed a sophisticated financial network. Pilgrims could deposit money in a Templar house in Europe and withdraw it in the Holy Land, effectively inventing an early form of banking. The order owned farms, vineyards, ships, and castles across Europe and the Middle East. They became moneylenders to kings and popes, amassing resources that rivaled entire kingdoms. This combination of military strength, religious devotion, and financial power made the Templars almost untouchable. They were admired, respected, and feared in equal measure, but with power comes suspicion. Whispers began to circulate. What secrets did the Templars hold in their fortified houses? Did they uncover hidden treasures beneath the Temple Mount? Were they truly pious servants of Christ, or were they dabbling in dark rituals behind closed doors? Legends began to grow around the order. Some claimed the Templars had discovered the Holy Grail itself, the cup used by Christ at the Last Supper. Others believed they guarded the Ark of the Covenant, lost for centuries, which was said to hold God's very presence. Tales of secret knowledge, forbidden relics, and mysterious rites spread across Europe. Even their initiation ceremonies were shrouded in mystery. New recruits were brought into secret chambers, asked strange questions, and sworn to secrecy. Outsiders imagined all kinds of blasphemous rituals taking place in these hidden rooms. Were they spitting on the cross? Were they denying Christ? Or were they simply binding themselves together with loyalty and brotherhood? The lack of transparency allowed rumor to flourish, and rumor in the medieval world often carried more weight than fact. The downfall of the Knights Templar was as dramatic as their rise. By the late 13th century, the Crusades were failing. Jerusalem had been lost, and Christian forces were pushed back. The Templars still held vast wealth and influence, but their original mission to defend the Holy Land was slipping away. Enter King Philip Roman IV of France, known as Philip the Fair. He was deeply in debt to the Templars, having borrowed heavily to fund his wars. To him, the order was not a holy institution, but a financial threat. If the Templars were destroyed, their wealth could be seized and his debts erased. On Friday, October 13th, 1307, a date forever etched into history, Philip struck. At dawn, across France, hundreds of Templars were arrested simultaneously. The charges were shocking: heresy, idolatry, sorcery, and moral corruption. They were accused of worshipping a mysterious idol called Baphomet, spitting on the cross during secret rituals, and engaging in blasphemous practices. Under torture, many confessed to these crimes. Some claimed they had been forced to deny Christ during their initiation. Others admitted to obscene rituals, though these confessions were often inconsistent and extracted under brutal duress. Nevertheless, the damage was done. Public opinion turned against the once revered order. Pope Clement V, pressured by Philip, eventually dissolved the Knights Templar in 1312. Their properties were transferred to rival orders, though much of their wealth conveniently found its way into the king's treasury. In 1314, the last Grand Master of the Templars, Jacques de Molay, was burned at the stake in Paris. As the flames rose around him, he reportedly cursed both the king and the pope, summoning them to God's judgment within the year. Strangely enough, both men died shortly after, fueling legends of a Templar curse that would echo for centuries. Though the order was destroyed, the mystery of the Knights Templar only grew. The secrecy of their rituals, the suddenness of their downfall, and the brutality of their persecution gave rise to endless speculation. Were they really guilty of heresy, or were they innocent men crushed by the greed of a king? Legends sprang up that the Templars had hidden their treasure before their arrest. Vast hoards of gold, sacred relics, or secret knowledge buried beneath castles or carried away on ships. Some even claimed that Templar knights escaped to distant lands, continuing their order in secret. In Scotland, myths suggest that surviving Templars fought alongside Robert the Bruce at the Battle of Bannockburn. In Portugal, they supposedly re-emerged as the Order of Christ, guiding explorers during the Age of Discovery. Their name became tied to countless mysteries: the Holy Grail, the Shroud of Turin, the Freemasons, even conspiracy theories about world domination. In literature and popular culture, from medieval romances to modern novels, the Templars remained shadowy guardians of secret truths. For centuries, the truth behind the accusations remained hidden, but in 2001, a remarkable discovery was made in the Vatican's secret archives. Historians found the Chinon parchment, a document written in 1308 that had been forgotten for centuries. It contained the results of an investigation into the Templars by Pope Clement V himself. The parchment revealed something extraordinary. The Pope had absolved the Templars of heresy. He acknowledged that under torture they confessed to certain practices, but he did not consider them heretical. In fact, Clement had been inclined to forgive and reform the order. It was only the relentless pressure from King Philip Roman IV that forced the Pope to suppress the Templars completely. In other words, the Templars were not guilty of heresy or devil worship. Their downfall was not the result of secret sins, but of political greed. They were victims of a medieval power struggle between church, crown, and money. With this revelation, the great mystery of the Templars shifts. They were not sorcerers or idol worshippers. They were not keepers of demonic secrets. They were men, deeply pious, fiercely disciplined, and immensely wealthy. Their secrecy was not evidence of heresy, but of necessity in a dangerous and politically charged world. The accusations of worshipping Baphomet or desecrating the cross were products of fear, misunderstanding, and deliberate lies. The real mystery was how a king's ambition and greed could destroy one of the most powerful institutions of the medieval age. Yet, the allure of the legends remains, perhaps because humans crave mystery more than truth, a secret treasure, a hidden order, an eternal brotherhood. It captivates the imagination in ways that dusty parchments cannot. The Templars have become more than history. They are myth, symbol, and story. The legacy of the Knights Templar survives in surprising ways. Their financial systems laid foundations for modern banking. Their fortresses influenced castle design. Their cross, once a battlefield emblem, remains a powerful symbol, echoed in the insignia of later chivalric orders. In popular imagination, they continue to inspire novels, films, and video games. From Indiana Jones to Assassin's Creed, the Templars are depicted as guardians of forbidden relics or secret societies pulling the strings of history. Even though modern scholarship has revealed much of the truth, the myths endure, because they speak to something deeper in us, the desire to believe that history hides secrets waiting to be uncovered. So, what was the true mystery of the Knights Templar? For centuries, people believed they were guilty of heresy, black magic, and occult practices. But in reality, the greatest mystery was not what they believed or practiced, but why they fell. Their destruction was not caused by dark rituals, but by a king's fear and greed. Their secrecy was not evidence of sin, but a necessity of survival in a hostile world. And their supposed treasure, perhaps it was never gold or relics, but the enduring legacy of a brotherhood that captured the imagination of the world. The Templars remind us that history is not always as it seems. Sometimes the true mystery is not hidden in shadows, but written in plain sight, obscured only by the lies of those who held power. And so, the Knights Templar remain both solved and unsolved. We now understand the politics that destroyed them, yet the myths they inspired continue to live on, whispering through the corridors of time. Picture yourself walking through the heart of the Khmer Empire in the 12th century. Before you stretches a vast city, unlike anything the medieval world had ever seen. Towering stone temples pierce the sky, adorned with intricate carvings of gods, dancers, and battles. Canals shimmer in the sunlight, lined with palm trees and bustling with boats. Monks in saffron robes walk along sacred pathways, while elephants carry nobles draped in silk and gold. Markets overflow with rice, fish, and exotic goods brought from distant lands. This was Angkor, the jewel of Southeast Asia, the seat of the mighty Khmer kings. At its height, Angkor was home to perhaps 750,000 to 1 million people, making it one of the largest cities on Earth in the medieval period. To put that into perspective, at the same time London had fewer than 100,000 people. At the center of it all stood Angkor Wat, the world's largest religious monument. Constructed in the early 12th century by King Suryavarman II, it was originally dedicated to the Hindu god Vishnu. Its central towers represented the peaks of Mount Meru, the mythical home of the gods. Its walls stretched with bas reliefs depicting epic tales from the Mahabharata and Ramayana. Later, it would become a Buddhist sanctuary, reflecting the changing faith of the Khmer Empire. The scale, beauty, and ambition of Angkor Wat spoke of a civilization at the height of its power. Engineers, architects, and laborers working with precision that still amazes scholars today. But just a few centuries later, the city that had been the pride of Asia was mysteriously abandoned. Its temples stood silent, swallowed by the jungle. For generations, travelers, colonizers, and historians wondered, why did this magnificent empire fall? When Portuguese explorers stumbled upon Angkor in the 16th century, they were stunned. To them, it seemed impossible that such a grand city could be hidden in the jungle, forgotten by the world. They wrote of an extraordinary temple, of a construction not to be described with a pen, marveling at its scale and artistry. Later, French explorers in the 19th century brought Angkor to the attention of the West, sparking fascination and endless theories. Some believed Angkor was destroyed by invaders. Others claimed it had been consumed by disease. Still, others argued it had been cursed by the gods, abandoned after angering the heavens. For centuries, the true cause of Angkor's decline remained one of the great unsolved mysteries of the medieval world. Scholars have long debated why Angkor fell. Several major theories emerged over time. Military defeat. The neighboring kingdom of Ayutthaya in present-day Thailand invaded Angkor in the 15th century. Historical records mention battles and conquests, leading many to believe Angkor was destroyed by foreign armies. Religious transformation. The Khmer Empire gradually shifted from Hinduism to Theravada Buddhism, a simpler faith less reliant on temple building and grand displays of wealth. Some argued that as Buddhism spread, the political and economic foundations of Angkor weakened. Economic strain building and maintaining such a vast city required enormous resources. Perhaps the empire simply overextended itself, collapsing under the weight of its own ambition. Environmental change. More recently, scientists began to suspect that climate played a role. Droughts, floods, and ecological shifts may have destabilized Angkor's complex water system, undermining the very infrastructure that sustained the city. But which of these theories was true? Was Angkor destroyed by enemies, by faith, by mismanagement, or by nature itself? To solve this mystery, we must understand what made Angkor so extraordinary. Khmer engineers had built a massive, sophisticated water management system, one of the greatest achievements of medieval engineering. Stretching over hundreds of kilometers, the system included reservoirs, canals, embankments, and moats. It allowed the Khmer to control the flow of the Tonle Sap Lake and surrounding rivers, ensuring reliable rice production even during dry seasons. This agricultural surplus supported the massive population and fueled the empire's wealth. But such a system was both a strength and a weakness. Like a finely tuned machine, it required constant maintenance. Any disruption, drought, flood, or mismanagement could have devastating effects. In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, archaeologists and scientists turned to new tools to unlock Angkor's secrets. Using satellite imagery, airborne laser scanning LiDAR, and sediment analysis, they began to reconstruct the ancient city in incredible detail. LiDAR revealed hidden canals and roads beneath the jungle, proving Angkor was far larger than anyone had imagined. It wasn't just a city of temples, it was an urban sprawl covering nearly 400 square miles. This made it one of the largest pre-industrial cities in the world. Meanwhile, sediment cores from surrounding lakes told a darker story. Layers of soil revealed cycles of massive droughts followed by intense floods in the 14th and 15th centuries. These extremes would have overwhelmed Angkor's delicate water system. During droughts, canals ran dry, crops failed, and famine spread. Then, sudden floods eroded infrastructure, washing away dikes and embankments. Over time, the system collapsed, taking the empire down with it. The picture that emerged was not of a single cause, but a perfect storm. Yes, Aithea may have attacked Angkor, but military defeat alone cannot explain the city's abandonment. After all, great cities often recover from conquest. Yes, Buddhism may have shifted priorities, but faith alone does not collapse an empire. And yes, the empire may have overreached, but societies adapt to economic strain. It was the combination of environmental catastrophe, political pressure, and cultural change that doomed Angkor. Drought weakened the economy, floods destroyed infrastructure, and invaders exploited the chaos. Over decades, the once mighty city became unsustainable. The royal court eventually moved south toward Phnom Penh, leaving Angkor to the jungle. So, was Angkor Wat's decline a mystery? For centuries, yes. To medieval travelers, it was an enigma. To European explorers, it was a wonder beyond explanation. But modern science has provided clarity. The Khmer Empire was undone not by a single enemy or betrayal, but by the forces of nature itself. In an age before modern technology, climate change and ecological collapse proved too much for even the greatest engineers of the medieval world. And yet, Angkor did not vanish completely. Its temples continued to be places of worship for local communities. Its cultural and spiritual influence survived in Cambodia's traditions, art, and identity. Even today, Angkor Wat appears on the national flag of Cambodia, a proud reminder of past glory. The story of Angkor's decline is not just history, it is a warning. Civilizations rise on the strength of their environment, but when they push too hard, when they over-engineer, when they ignore the balance of nature, they become vulnerable. Angkor's fall reminds us that human ambition has limits. Even the greatest city of its age could not escape the consequences of environmental change. Today, as we face our own climate challenges, the lessons of Angkor feel more relevant than ever. And yet, Angkor retains some of its mystery. Exactly how quickly the city declined remains debated. Did people flee all at once, or did the population slowly dwindle over decades? Did hidden treasures lie buried beneath the temples? Were there internal rebellions or palace intrigues that accelerated the collapse? These questions continue to intrigue archaeologists and historians. What is certain is this: Angkor was not simply a lost city swallowed by the jungle. It was a living civilization, brought low by forces beyond its control, yet never truly forgotten. Its temples still stand, whispering stories of glory and loss, of gods and kings, of engineers who dared to tame rivers and skies. The fall of Angkor Wat was once one of the greatest medieval mysteries. Today, we see it not as a sudden, inexplicable event, but as the result of complex, interwoven forces, environmental, political, cultural, and human. From the grandeur of its rise to the tragedy of its fall, Angkor teaches us that civilizations, no matter how great, are fragile. The stones of Angkor still rise proudly above the Cambodian jungle, a testament to human genius, and a reminder that even the most powerful empires are at the mercy of nature's hand. The Tower of London has stood for nearly 1,000 years, a looming presence on the banks of the River Thames. To the medieval world, it was more than stone and mortar. It was a symbol of power, a fortress that could dominate a city, a palace that housed royalty, and a prison that held the guilty and the innocent alike. Over centuries, kings, queens, nobles, and commoners passed through its gates, some leaving in triumph, others never leaving at all. By the late 15th century, the tower had already become infamous for its role in political intrigue, imprisonment, and execution. Secret tunnels, fortified walls, and high towers gave it an aura of mystery, a place where power and danger were intertwined. It was against this backdrop that one of England's most enduring medieval mysteries took place: the disappearance of the two young princes, Edward and Richard, heirs to the throne. The year was 1483. Edward V had just ascended to the English throne after the death of his father, Edward Roman IV. He was only 12 years old. His younger brother, Richard of Shrewsbury, was just 9. They were placed in the tower by their uncle, Richard, Duke of Gloucester, ostensibly for their protection while awaiting Edward's coronation. Yet the tower was no ordinary place of safety. Its walls had witnessed betrayals, imprisonments, and murders for generations. As months passed, rumors swirled. The princes disappeared. They were never seen again. For centuries, historians, novelists, and amateur detectives have debated what happened to them. Were they murdered? If so, by whom? And why did the tower, a symbol of royal authority, become the scene of such a chilling mystery? To understand the context, we must appreciate the dangerous world of medieval succession. Kingship in 15th century England was not a guaranteed inheritance. Ambitious nobles vied for power, alliances shifted like sand, and every death or disappearance carried political implications. Richard, Duke of Gloucester, later Richard Roman III, was declared Lord Protector for the young Edward V. Historians have long debated whether Richard had ambitions beyond guardianship. Some contemporaries claimed he coveted the throne for himself. Others suggest he was a loyal uncle, trying to navigate a perilous political landscape. What is clear is that the disappearance of the princes created a vacuum of uncertainty. Rumors of murder spread quickly. Chroniclers such as Sir Thomas More and later Shakespeare painted Richard Roman III as the villain responsible for killing his nephews to seize the crown. But were these accounts accurate, or were they shaped by the Tudors, who came to power after Richard's death in 1485 and had every reason to vilify him? The mystery took a dramatic turn in 1674, nearly 2 centuries later. Workmen digging in the tower grounds uncovered a small, concealed staircase leading to a bricked-up area. Inside, they found 2 small skeletons buried together beneath the stairway. The bones were of children, seemingly between the ages of 10 and 12, matching the ages of Edward V and his brother Richard at the time of their disappearance. News of the discovery spread quickly, sparking intrigue and speculation across England. Could these be the long-lost princes? The bones were placed in an urn and later reinterred in Westminster Abbey by order of King Charles Roman II, who reportedly wanted to honor the memory of the children. Yet for centuries, the identity of the skeletons remained uncertain, locked in the shadow of history and rumor. The Tower of London is a structure that seems built for mystery. Its architecture is labyrinthine: high walls, narrow passageways, secret chambers, and hidden staircases. Over centuries, many prisoners passed through its gates, some executed, some imprisoned indefinitely. This environment of secrecy, danger, and intrigue makes it easy to understand how rumors could flourish and how the fate of 2 young princes could remain shrouded in uncertainty. Historians argue that the tower's role as both fortress and prison reflects the precarious nature of medieval power. Kingship was rarely safe, and castles like the tower were designed not just to defend against external threats, but also to control and intimidate potential rivals within. In this context, the prince's disappearance becomes tragically plausible. An internal power struggle played out behind the thick walls. Over the centuries, multiple theories have emerged regarding the fate of the princes. Murder by Richard Roman III, this is the most widely believed theory. Richard had a motive. Removing the heirs cleared his path to the throne. Chroniclers from the Tudor period, however biased, painted him as ruthless and cunning. Killed by Henry Stafford, Duke of Buckingham, some historians suggest Richard acted in concert with Buckingham, who had his own ambitions for the crown. Survival and escape. A less common theory posits that the princes were secretly smuggled out of the tower and survived, living under assumed identities. This theory has little evidence but persists in popular imagination. Murder by other courtiers. Given the volatile nature of court politics, some suggest other nobles could have killed the princes to curry favor with Richard or advance their own ambitions. While these theories abound, concrete evidence remained elusive for centuries, keeping the mystery alive. The development of modern forensic science has brought new insight into this centuries-old mystery. Skeletal analysis techniques can estimate age, sex, health, and even diet. Advanced DNA testing, if samples are preserved, can provide familial connections. In the 1930s and later in the 1930s and 1950s, the remains were studied. Experts determined the skeletons were indeed children, likely boys, and of the correct approximate age for Edward and Richard. However, the lack of direct DNA comparison made absolute confirmation impossible until very recently. In 2013, researchers proposed using mitochondrial DNA from living relatives of the royal family to match the remains. The problem is that centuries of lineage, wars, and incomplete records complicate such testing. Still, some studies suggest the remains are consistent with what we would expect from the princes, though skepticism remains. The story of the princes and their mysterious deaths has shaped how we view Richard Roman III, the Tower of London, and medieval politics. Shakespeare's play Richard Roman III immortalized the narrative of the cruel uncle who murdered his nephews, a story that has influenced generations' understanding of history despite its dramatic license. The tower itself has become a symbol of both authority and terror. To the medieval imagination, it represented the precariousness of power, a place where fortune could vanish overnight, where innocence could be destroyed in the shadows of stone walls. The prince's disappearance captures this perfectly, embodying the human drama, ambition, and tragedy of medieval courts. In 2012, Richard Roman III's remains were discovered under a car park in Leicester, proving that centuries-old mysteries can sometimes be solved in unexpected ways. This gives hope that future advances may one day confirm the identity of the tower skeletons. Archaeologists continue to study the tower itself. LiDAR scanning and ground-penetrating radar reveal previously unknown chambers, hidden staircases, and burial sites. Each discovery adds depth to our understanding of the tower as a medieval fortress and royal prison, shedding light on the context in which the princes disappeared. The mystery of the tower skeletons has transcended history books. It has inspired novels, films, documentaries, and television series. From suspenseful thrillers imagining secret escape routes to historical dramas depicting the brutal struggle for the crown, the story captures the imagination because it combines innocence, power, and betrayal, timeless themes in human storytelling. Even today, tourists walk the tower grounds imagining the footsteps of princes, prisoners, and guards from centuries ago. The walls seem to whisper stories of ambition, fear, and loss, creating an eerie connection between past and present. Why does this medieval mystery endure? Perhaps because it represents something universal, the fragility of human life, the ruthlessness of ambition, and the uncertainty of power. The princes were children caught in a political storm far beyond their control. Their story reminds us that history is not just about kings and battles, but about real human lives, often lost or overshadowed by events they cannot influence. Moreover, The mystery underscores the value of modern science. Archaeology and forensic methods allow us to revisit historical enigmas with new tools, shedding light on stories that were once thought unsolvable. Every discovery, every DNA test, every careful analysis brings us closer to understanding what truly happened in those shadowed corridors of the tower. The skeletons of the Tower of London may never give up all their secrets. We may never know with absolute certainty what became of Edward V and Richard of Shrewsbury, but through historical records, archaeological evidence, and forensic analysis, we come closer than ever before. The story of the princes reminds us that history is both permanent and fragile, concrete yet elusive. Medieval mysteries are not merely puzzles. They are windows into the human experience, reflecting fear, ambition, love, and loss. And while the Tower of London still stands, imposing and silent, it invites us to remember those who once walked its halls, and to continue seeking the truths hidden within its walls. Imagine Scandinavia over 1,000 years ago, during the Viking Age, a world defined by harsh winters, deep forests, and stormy seas. Communities were small but resilient, with people dependent on fishing, farming, and trade. The Vikings are often remembered as fierce raiders and explorers, sailing far across the North Atlantic, the Baltic, and into Eastern Europe, contrary to the modern stereotype of Vikings as exclusively male warriors with axes and shields. Their society was far more complex. While men often led raids and held formal leadership roles, women played crucial roles both at home and, as we now know, on the battlefield. The Viking Age, roughly 793–1066 AD, was a period of rapid expansion, cultural exchange, and intense survival. Communities relied on every capable person, and the fluidity of gender roles in certain contexts allowed women opportunities that might surprise modern observers. It was in this environment that a remarkable archaeological discovery would challenge long-held assumptions about Viking gender role. In the late 19th century, archaeologists excavating the ancient site of Birka, Sweden, uncovered a warrior grave unlike any other. Buried with the individual were a full array of weapons: a sword, a battle axe, spear, shield, and even 2 horses, suggesting that the person had been of high status. The grave also contained gaming pieces, which historians now interpret as symbols of strategic skill and leadership, not just play. Given the weapons and grave goods, archaeologists assumed the remains were male. This assumption persisted for over a century, reinforcing the traditional image of Viking warriors as men. It seemed logical. Medieval European societies were largely patriarchal, and women were rarely depicted in battle. However, Viking graves are often complex and symbolic. Grave goods reflect not only the individual's daily life, but also social status, roles, and symbolic identity. Yet for decades, no one seriously questioned the male identity of this warrior. Fast forward to the 21st century, advances in DNA analysis allowed researchers to revisit this remarkable grave. In 2017, a team of archaeologists and geneticists undertook a thorough investigation. Using ancient DNA techniques, they extracted genetic material from the skeleton and conducted a complete analysis. The results were astonishing. The warrior was biologically female. This single discovery overturned centuries of assumptions about Viking society and challenged the deeply ingrained belief that women were rarely, if ever, combatants in medieval warfare. Suddenly, the story of Birka became one of the most famous revelations in Viking archaeology. A female warrior, buried with the same honors and equipment as male counterparts, demanded a reconsideration of how we interpret gender roles in history. To understand the significance of this discovery, we need to examine the broader context of Viking society. Women in Scandinavia enjoyed rights unheard of in much of medieval Europe. They could inherit property, initiate divorce, and even lead households in their husband's absence. Some women managed estates, traded goods, and wielded influence in local communities. Yet the role of women in warfare remained largely invisible. Until now. The Birka warrior suggests that at least some women were not only active participants, but also leaders in martial contexts. This aligns with Norse sagas and folklore, which occasionally reference shieldmaidens, women who fought alongside men and sometimes led troops into battle. While historians once dismissed these stories as myth, the Birka grave provides concrete evidence that such figures existed in reality. The implications of this discovery are profound. For centuries, textbooks and popular culture portrayed Vikings as exclusively male warriors, with women relegated to domestic roles. Now we know that Viking women could wield swords, command troops, and achieve the honor of a warrior's burial. This raises new questions. How many other women fought as warriors, but were assumed to be men in the archaeological record? How did their participation influence Viking campaigns, politics, and society? Scholars now reconsider grave goods, settlement patterns, and historical texts with a more nuanced understanding of gender fluidity in the Viking Age. The Birka warrior is not an anomaly but a powerful reminder that history often reflects the biases of those who record it. Male-centric narratives dominated for centuries, obscuring the contributions of women in domains once assumed to be exclusively male. What might the life of a woman like the Birka warrior have been like? She likely trained in combat from a young age, mastering swordplay, archery, and tactical skills. She may have participated in raids, defended her community, and gained respect for her prowess. Her burial suggests she achieved high status, recognized not only for her combat abilities, but also for leadership and strategic acumen. Viking women warriors faced unique challenges. They had to balance societal expectations with martial responsibilities, navigating a world in which physical skill could grant honor but also invite scrutiny. Their visibility in death through ceremonial burial was a statement of recognition. The community honored her as both warrior and leader, irrespective of gender. Birka, located on the island of Birka in Lake Mälaren, Sweden, was a significant trading hub in the Viking Age. Excavations reveal a cosmopolitan city, with goods from as far away as Byzantium and the Middle East. The city contained hundreds of burial mounds, each carefully studied to understand social hierarchy, trade, and cultural practices. The warrior grave stands out for several reasons. First, it contained a full suite of weapons, signaling readiness for combat. Second, it included items indicating leadership, such as gaming pieces for strategic planning. Third, the grave's orientation, construction, and richness placed the individual in a high social stratum, emphasizing her importance within the community. Historical texts from Scandinavia and beyond provide tantalizing hints that women warriors were not entirely fictional. Sagas such as the Gesta Danorum by Saxo Grammaticus describe shieldmaidens fighting alongside men. These women were respected, feared, and sometimes integral to military campaigns. The Birka discovery validates these accounts, suggesting that oral tradition and saga literature may preserve kernels of historical truth. While some medieval chroniclers exaggerated or romanticized, archaeology shows that shieldmaidens were real figures in Viking society. The revelation that the Birka warrior was female has reverberated far beyond academia. It challenges assumptions about gender roles, questions the reliability of male-centered historical narratives, and highlights the need to re-examine archaeological evidence. Popular media quickly picked up the story, inspiring documentaries, books, and television shows. The image of the female Viking warrior captivates modern audiences, blending fascination with historical correction. She embodies strength, skill, and resilience, reminding us that women's contributions to history have often been hidden in plain sight. Even with DNA confirmation, many questions about the Birka warrior remain. What was her name? Did she lead troops into battle or primarily defend her community? How many other female warriors existed across Scandinavia? Archaeologists continue to search for graves, analyze artifacts, and reconsider Viking society through this new lens. The mystery lies not in whether women fought, but in how many stories and individuals have been lost to history. Every skeleton, every artifact, and every burial provides clues, but the true scope of women's participation in warfare remains partially obscured by centuries of male-dominated record-keeping. The Birka warrior has become more than a historical discovery. She is a symbol of resilience and equality. Her story challenges modern stereotypes about medieval women and offers a broader understanding of societal roles in the past. She also inspires contemporary conversations about representation, recognition, and the power of revisiting history with new tools and perspectives. Her existence reminds us that history is never static. Archaeology, genetics, and critical analysis allow us to uncover truths long hidden, reshaping our understanding of the past in profound ways. The Birka warrior teaches several important lessons. History is biased. The stories we inherit are often shaped by those in power, and marginalized groups can be erased or overlooked. Women have always contributed from warfare to leadership. Women played roles that were essential to their societies, even if records obscure them. Science can uncover the truth. Advances in DNA and forensic archaeology allow us to challenge assumptions and validate historical hypotheses. The legends can contain truth. Norse sagas, once dismissed as myth, may preserve real accounts of female warriors. The Viking woman warrior of Birka was not a myth nor an exception. She represents a reality that has long been hidden. Women in the Viking Age could fight, lead, and be honored as warriors. Her discovery challenges centuries of assumptions, reminding us that history is a living, evolving field of inquiry. In her grave, weapons by her side, lies a testament to courage, skill, and status. She stands as a bridge between the Viking sagas of legend and the archaeological reality of medieval Scandinavia. Her story reminds us that the past is full of surprises, and that every new discovery can reshape our understanding of human history. The Birka warrior is both a mystery solved and a symbol of what remains to be discovered, a reminder that history, like the Viking seas she once sailed, is vast, deep, and full of hidden truths waiting to emerge. The medieval world was vast, turbulent, and often brutal. Castles, cathedrals, and cities rose to stunning heights, yet many of their secrets remain hidden, locked away in stone walls, dusty manuscripts, or beneath layers of soil. Despite centuries of research, modern science, and archaeological breakthroughs, certain mysteries of the medieval era continue to captivate historians, archaeologists, and curious minds worldwide. From the secretive rituals of the Knights Templar to the abandoned city of Angkor, from the tragic disappearance of the Tower princes to the burial of a female Viking warrior, the medieval world still speaks to us in whispers and shadows. Some of these mysteries have been partially solved, while others remain tantalizingly unresolved, a reminder that history is not a static record but a living puzzle, ever evolving as new evidence emerges. Even with centuries of scholarship, medieval Europe holds secrets that continue to provoke debate. The lost treasure of the Templars, while modern research has clarified that the Templars were likely innocent of heresy, the fate of their immense wealth remains uncertain. Legends suggest gold, sacred relics, and hidden manuscripts might still lie buried across Europe or the Holy Land. The secrecy of the Templars ensures that the allure of hidden treasure continues to inspire treasure hunters and writers alike. The identity of the princes in the tower, despite centuries of study and forensic analysis, we may never know the definitive fate of Edward V and Richard of Shrewsbury. The discovery of two children's skeletons in the tower provides tantalizing clues, yet questions of identity, motive, and circumstance remain. The mystery illustrates the fragility of life in medieval power struggles and the uncertainty that even royal blood could not protect. The builders of Gothic cathedrals, medieval cathedrals like Notre Dame, Chartres, and Cologne, still inspire awe. Scholars debate how medieval architects achieved such precision and height without modern machinery. Some believe lost techniques or secret guild knowledge may have been used, sparking theories about hidden engineering methods lost to time. The disappearance of Angkor, while environmental studies explain much of Angkor's decline, precise details about how society adapted or failed to adapt remain debated. Archaeologists continue to study hidden canals, reservoirs, and settlements to uncover how climate, politics, and culture intertwined to bring down one of the medieval world's greatest cities. Unexplained artifacts across medieval Europe and Asia, items are discovered that challenge conventional historical understanding. From intricate carvings and mechanical devices to unusual weaponry, these artifacts hint at knowledge, trade networks, or cultural exchanges that remain partially unexplained. One of the most fascinating aspects of solving medieval mysteries is the role of modern science. Technologies like LiDAR, ground-penetrating radar, and DNA analysis are allowing us to peer into the past in ways medieval chroniclers could never imagine. LiDAR scanning, used in places like Angkor, LiDAR has revealed hidden urban networks, canals, and roads buried beneath dense jungle. These discoveries change our understanding of the scale and complexity of medieval civilizations. DNA and forensics, advances in genetics have allowed scientists to identify the Viking warrior of Birka and examine skeletal remains in England and across Europe. These tools provide insight into gender, familial relations, health, diet, and even causes of death. Archaeochemistry and isotope analysis, by analyzing soil, residues, and human remains, researchers can reconstruct diets, migration patterns, and trade networks, revealing the day-to-day lives of people long gone. Modern science not only solves long-standing mysteries, but also raises new questions. Each discovery illuminates the medieval world while reminding us of its complexity and nuance. Why do these medieval mysteries fascinate us? Beyond the allure of treasure or intrigue, they connect us to the human experience. The Templars' persecution reminds us of how fear and power can shape history. The Tower Prince's disappearance highlights innocence lost in political chaos. The Birka warrior challenges our assumptions about gender roles, showing us the overlooked contributions of women in history. Angkor's decline warns of the fragility of civilizations in the face of environmental and societal pressures. Medieval mysteries endure because they are fundamentally human. They involve ambition, greed, bravery, innovation, and tragedy. They speak to our desire to understand not just what happened, but why it happened, and what it teaches us about ourselves. Medieval mysteries often blur the line between myth and historical fact. Legends, folklore, and chronicled tales may exaggerate, romanticize, or obscure reality, but they also preserve valuable truth. The Knights Templar and the Holy Grail. While the Templars did not guard the Holy Grail, legends of sacred relics endured because they reflected medieval society's spiritual imagination. Viking shieldmaidens. Sagas spoke of women warriors, once dismissed as fiction. The Birka warrior confirms that legends can sometimes preserve historical truths. Tower princes and Tudor propaganda. Shakespeare and Tudor historians depicted Richard III as a villain, but archaeological evidence reminds us that truth is more complex than literary narrative. By studying these intersections of myth and history, we gain insight into medieval minds, their fears, hopes, and cultural priorities, as well as the ways stories are shaped over time. The study of medieval mysteries is as much about the modern investigator as it is about the past. Archaeologists, historians, and scientists act as detectives, piecing together fragments of evidence from ruins, bones, manuscripts, and artifacts. Their work requires critical thinking, scientific rigor, and sometimes a willingness to challenge long-held assumptions. The Birka warrior, for example, could have remained assumed male if researchers had not applied DNA testing. The skeletons in the tower might reveal their secrets if technology and forensic methods advance further. Modern historians also grapple with bias in historical records, recognizing that chroniclers often wrote from the perspective of the powerful. By combining archaeological evidence with critical historiography, they reconstruct a more nuanced understanding of the medieval world. Fascination with medieval mysteries is not confined to academia. Movies, television, novels, and video games continually revisit these enigmas, blending historical fact with imagination. The Knights Templar feature in novels, films, and conspiracy theories, often associated with secret knowledge, treasure, or hidden agendas. The Tower Princes have inspired dramas, thrillers, and historical reconstructions that explore betrayal, power, and human vulnerability. The Birka warrior challenges contemporary storytelling by redefining heroism, gender, and identity. Angkor Wat, though far from Europe, captivates global audiences through documentaries, travel media, and archaeology-focused narratives, illustrating that medieval mysteries have universal appeal. Popular culture keeps these mysteries alive, inviting new generations to engage with history and sparking curiosity that often leads back to scholarly investigation. Even with modern science, some medieval mysteries resist resolution. Hidden Templar treasures despite centuries of searches. No verified hoard has been found. Was it lost forever, or does it remain hidden? Exact circumstances of the prince's deaths, while skeletal analysis provides clues, the political motivations, timing, and perpetrators remain partly speculative. The full scope of female Viking warriors, the Birka warrior, proves women fought, but how common was this? Are there graves yet undiscovered that could rewrite our understanding of Viking society? Lost knowledge and technology? Medieval builders and engineers achieved feats that still awe us. Were certain techniques forgotten? Could manuscripts, scrolls, or tools reveal more if discovered? These open questions remind us that history is never complete. Every discovery answers some questions while raising new ones, keeping the past alive in dialogue with the present. What can we learn from the unresolved mysteries of the medieval world? Power and ambition shape history. The Templars, Tower Princes, and Viking leaders remind us that personal ambition, political intrigue, and social hierarchy influence events as much as chance or nature. Human innovation is remarkable, but fragile anchors rise and fall show that even brilliant engineering and sophisticated planning cannot always overcome environmental and societal challenges. Narratives can mislead. History recorded by victors or biased chroniclers must be critically examined. Archaeology and modern science help correct misperceptions. The past is alive. Medieval mysteries are not just relics of a distant era. They continue to teach us about resilience, courage, human behavior, and the interplay between myth and reality. The medieval world is a tapestry of ambition, faith, innovation, and human drama. Some mysteries have been partially solved, the Knights Templars' innocence clarified, the Birka warrior identified, environmental causes of Angkor revealed, but others remain tantalizingly elusive. These stories endure not because they are fully understood, but because they connect us to the human experience across time. They remind us that history is not static, that it evolves as new evidence emerges, and that every stone, skeleton, and manuscript holds a story waiting to be discovered. In the end, the appeal of medieval mysteries lies in their balance of fact and legend, knowledge and uncertainty, humanity and myth. They invite us to wonder, to explore, and to reflect on the lives of those who came before. And while some answers may never be found, the search itself enriches our understanding of the past and of ourselves. Medieval mysteries are mirrors of our curiosity, revealing our desire to know, to understand, and to connect with the past. They remind us that history is both a record and a mystery, that every discovery opens new doors, and that the stories of human ambition, courage, and ingenuity are never fully complete. From the lost treasures of the Templars to the vanished princes of the Tower, from Angkor's abandoned canals to a Viking woman warrior, these mysteries inspire awe, respect, and relentless curiosity. They teach us that while the medieval world was distant in time, it resonates deeply with timeless human themes: power, ambition, love, loss, courage, and the unending quest for understanding. In exploring these enigmas, we become part of a long continuum of seekers, historians, archaeologists, and curious minds, forever drawn to the shadows of the past, eager to uncover the truths that lie hidden within. The medieval world, with all its secrets, has much to teach us, and its mysteries will continue to beckon, challenge, and inspire for generations to come.